I have now found that I'm virtually unemployable is the issue because I see opportunities and possibilities, and a lot of people just like to keep things working the way that they are.
I also wish I would have told my kids, here's one thing you can count on absolutely every day, and that's uncertainty.
Whatever business we're in is always just a people business.
The world wants to create mediocre people.
Love Well by Doing Good really challenges you to say, can you really bring that into the business world?
Welcome again. I'm always laughing when I'm like just thinking about how cool that video is that Bawa created for us, and just fun. So welcome again to the Love Well by Doing podcast. And I want to ask you right off the bat out there listening, because I ask you every time, what have you done to love well by doing good? And I want to know, and I'm all over social media, so you can find me there. I think my information's in here. So I want to know, what are you doing? What are you doing to change the world in that way? My guest this morning is Doug Woodward, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He has quite an impressive background, so it's fun to have him on this morning. Doug is a business architect and entrepreneur who helps leaders rebuild organizations so they actually work for the people inside them and the mission they were created to serve. After an early career as a corporate operations manager and general business consultant, Doug spent nearly 3 decades, you don't look that old, Doug, specializing in the dental industry. Not doing teeth, but consulting the owners. Right? Along the way, he began noticing a troubling pattern. Many business owners had unknowingly created the worst job they ever had. And if you're a business owner out there, you understand what we're talking about. Longer hours, greater responsibility, and often less pay than when they started. Doug realized that most of these leaders weren't failing because of a lack of talent or effort. They were trapped inside systems that quietly drained profitability, ownership, and leadership from the very people who had built their businesses in the first place. But rather than accepting that reality, Doug began redesigning those systems. And today he is the founder of Tribex, an ecosystem of companies and leadership frameworks designed to help organizations move beyond traditional management models into what he calls the acceleration age. This is where leaders multiply leaders, and teams take ownership of business and outcomes, and businesses are built to create lasting impact. Doug's work blends practical business architecture with a deep conviction that leadership begins with identity. Amen. He believes the most powerful organizations are built when people align purpose, ownership, and stewardship, and when leaders build not just for success today, but for legacy tomorrow. Doug lives in Texas with his wife, Amy, and is the proud father of 6 great kids. I got to meet 2 of them because Doug and his wife were in Colorado with their 2 kids, and they actually came to the ranch. And we did some fun horse stuff. For those of you who don't know, I do some equine experiential stuff. I'm not a therapist, so I don't say equine therapy, but it's amazing what happens when we get in the round pen with some people and with horses, and I like to say with God, and see what happens. So Doug, welcome. We've talked about this for a while, and I'm so glad.
We have, yeah. And just a finer point on the horse experience. We had been in Colorado for a full week, and when we got back, we asked the kids, or maybe on the plane, asked them what their top 5 experiences were, and they both ranked the horses either 1 or 2, and that's after a full week of whatever else we were doing. So it was a great time, and a great time of learning for them, actually. So it wasn't just being around the horses; it was everything that you demonstrated for them, and the way the horses react to people, and just learning more about them. So they really had a good time. That's the 2 youngest. The older ones don't get to travel with us much anymore because they have jobs. So
get it. These 2 hopefully will soon.
Yeah.
Bring up as well.
Good thing.
Well, thank you for being here and being on the Love Well by Doing Good podcast. And I know you and your team are working on that. You're working on loving well by doing good. But let's just talk a little bit more about you and tell me a little bit more. I mean, there's a lot of nice words on this paper about the things that you've done, but talk to me about why you started to do this consulting and helping people in the first place. Not everybody does that. A lot of people just start a business themselves, but you're somebody who not only has started businesses, but really is passionate about helping other people succeed. And why is that?
Um, yeah, I don't know how far to go back, actually,
You can
Sandy.
go back as far as you want. You can go back to being 2 years
uh,
old.
yeah, my early career, I was fortunate to graduate college and land in a fast growing school supply company. And so there were a bunch of young people. A school principal had started it. He was the only one that had any maturity or age on him. But my immediate boss was the president of the company, and he was 3 years older than me. And we grew a small school supply company um, to $10 million in like 5 years. And that's my first experience where I probably could have retired had I stayed with them. But it just wasn't a good fit for me. I realized after my uh, first son was born, and I missed him getting his first few teeth and learning to walk because I was at work all the time. It was just a seasonal business, and so went looking for something else, and I landed as a financial planner for a time, and I don't think we've ever even talked about that.
Oh,
Series 63 license, and I enjoyed that part of helping people think about their future. But if anybody that's watching this knows me, they know that I didn't really care for the numbers that much. So I partnered with a CPA in the firm, and he kind of did all the numbers, and then I talked with the clients about what their goals were, and so together we made a really good team. One of those clients had um, a business consulting firm, and he recruited me out of there, and so I did that for about a year with him, and uh, and then I left there, and the next place I landed was without a job for a really long time. Like I had come out of college and made really good money for a number of years, and then after I left there, I was probably 7 months without being able to find anything. I have now found that I'm virtually unemployable is the issue, right? Like I'm not necessarily made to work for other people, and and because I see opportunities and possibilities, and a lot of people just like to keep things working the way that they are. And so, um, finally, a guy from church, he was working for a dental uh, technology company, and which he wanted me to come to work for him to sell software. And I couldn't think of anything more boring than to sell software to dentists. I'm like, don't they all already have software? But this was prior to Y2K, and they all did have software, or a lot of them did, but it was DOS-based software, and they were coming up against the whole two-digit year thing, and they needed to convert. And so I went into that. But the company that I went to work for, and the way that he finally convinced me to give it a shot was he. So we played softball together on the church softball team, and he just bugged me endlessly. And finally he said, "Why don't I just come over and show you the stuff? And afterwards, if you don't like it, then um, I'll quit bugging you." And I thought, okay, that's the deal of the century. And so he came over and very wisely didn't show me practice management software, which is pretty boring, but he showed me all the digital technology that was coming out. And this was, again, before the year 2000. So I had never seen my teeth on a camera, on a screen before. He showed me digital x ray, which is standard now. Back then, had like 1% penetration in the market. It was phenomenal. And very quickly after that, I said, okay, I can see myself working with dentists to help them move from essentially paper and analog stuff into a digital world. And so the company that I went to work for was comprised of a software company in California and what they called a multi-op company in Atlanta. And they were the first company nationally to put all of that stuff together. So in other words, you could get the multi-op stuff, technology into the operatories and the software up front, all from one stop. So it was more consultative selling than it was like we have a product to sell you. And so I could go in and talk with the dentist about what their goals were and then fit to their goals as opposed to just trying to sell them a toaster every time they wanted to make toast, right? Like that. And so I learned a lot about dentistry in a very short period of time. It has its own lexicon, and so probably within 6 months, I had people asking me if I was a dentist. I'm like, I'm not a dentist. I'm just selling the stuff, and these are the things we have to know to be able um, to put a comprehensive plan together. So I think ever since then um, my career path has always been, so the business consulting has always been some sort of consulting with um, businesses. And at first it was with general businesses, and then for almost 30 years it was exclusively in dentistry. And um, and then in 2008, I left the largest dental consulting firm here in the Southwest, um, and I started a company called I called it a virtual DSO. DSO is a dental support organization, and those in 2008 there were some of them out there, not nearly as many as there are today, and so we had more of a serving mentality than a standard DSO. Virtual DSO, just we were going to provide all those services for uh, dental practice owners as opposed to buying the practices and then providing those services. And so the idea of that really came to me. I was visiting with a husband wife dental team. Both of them were dentists in Missouri City from the consulting standpoint. And then after doing the evaluation and going through presentation of findings, they said, "Hey, we're sold. We want to buy the services, but we have a question. Can we just hire you guys to manage the practice instead of consult with us?" So on Southwest flight that night on the way back to Dallas, I drew up a business plan, took it into the partnership of the consulting firm, and one of the partners promptly shot it down. Like, no, we're not going to get into management. We're a consulting firm. So I launched that myself about 6 months later, and that is the first worst job I ever created for myself. So I did it for 3 years. We grew every practice that we went into substantially, but we didn't have any equity in the businesses that we were building. We were paid on a percentage basis, and so we grew practices rapidly. But at some point, you're going to reach a glass ceiling in every dental practice, and that's when it was designed to turn to gravy for us. And that's exactly when the dentist didn't want to pay us anymore. So we got paid for a lot of heavy lifting, and then um, I had pretty airtight contracts, but I just let the doctors out of the contracts whenever they got to a place they didn't want to pay us before, because it's a small vertical, and the last thing you want to be known for is suing your clients. So I decided that business wasn't for me anymore, and then from there decided that I would start acquiring practices, but I would do it with dental partners, and we started um, a DSO, formal DSO, in 2011, and it ran that through 2014, in kind of an inglorious end to that business. And but the thing that we launched, and I think we were front runners in, is we actually gave doctors opportunities to be owners with us, partners with us in those practices, where the standard DSO back then was just buying the practices and having doctors work for them. Coming out of that in 2015, I was once again unemployed, and and sitting back in my office, in my old office with a whiteboard, and just started charting out everything that I learned from that experience and what I would do differently, and all of that. And so um, the idea um, was born for what I called at the time the OFP, um, which this is the first time I'm publicly saying this, but it stood for the Old Fart Program, and it was literally like, who could I talk to and keep in service long enough to put an aggregation of practices together and sell them off. We didn't launch the business as the Old Fart Program, but later. Um,
You don't think that would have been a good marketing? I mean,
it was funny. Like every time it like trickled out and somebody would say it, doctors would laugh.
yeah.
But that was normally after they were already in some sort of relationship with us. But it made sense. I mean, it's the people that were interested in transition and needed a plan, and most of them had failed to make a plan. Um, which is what we find most of the time is people are just working until they decide that it's time to transition, and they haven't put a lot of thought into what that really means. Back then in 2015, for me, um, it meant that they hadn't planned well financially. Today, it means that they haven't planned well financially, and they haven't really thought about what their lifetime goals are, or what they're going to do afterwards, or it just matured overall for me, because I've found that happy dentists usually are working dentists. After they retire, they they can maybe do golf or fishing or something like that for about 3 months, and then they start missing the interaction. And I've also kind of come around to the idea that I think the way that practices are transitioning in dentists is not really the best for patients or the selling doctor or the buying doctor. And there's a lot of downward pressure on solo practitioners when they go to sell. Kind of prior to 2008, 2009, and the downturn, it was really, really common for me to hear from doctors. I mean, it's almost like they gave them a script in dental school, that when you talk about transition, that they would all read from the script and say, I want to handpick my successor, the one who's going to give my patients the best treatment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In 2009, when we were working with practices, and definitely in 2011, when we started acquiring practices and talking with dentists, that phrase changed completely to, I want maximum value for the sale of my practice. And it's been like that for every doctor that I've talked with ever since, except for one who lived kind of in the rural area and had put a lot of money away, and he was still, I would say, of the golden age of dentistry mindset, where he wanted to handpick who was going to take care of his patients moving forward. That's a good plan, right? Um, so we launched a business, the one that I had cooked up in my head in 2015. We finally launched it at the end of 2019. We bought our first practice at the beginning of 2020, January 16th, 2020. And I believe it was March 18th that the world shut down for COVID.
I was going to say, what a time to like do that. All
Yeah,
of us that transitioned in 2020 now look back and go, well, that was interesting.
yeah,
Had we known about the future, we might have not done that.
yeah, exactly. I wouldn't have. Or we would have done it, completely differently. But at that point, we were the pig at breakfast and fully committed, and so it changed everything. Really, our pipeline that we had been working on fell apart overnight. The capital that we had been talking with dried up, and we spent that downtime really rebuilding the business uh, from the inside, which was like, how are we going to get investors comfortable with this? Nobody knew like how dentistry was going to pop back at that point. Um, and so it was a difficult time to manage through. And we were a young company, so we didn't qualify for any PPP funding or anything. We just had to grit it out and get to the other side and open back up. And when we did, our practice had kind of two best months that it had had, because there was a built up need for dentistry. So yeah, it was a really interesting time. The market's changed a lot since then. Um, More pressure, more margin compression, and on the owner operators of dental practices. And um, it used to be that you could find a dentist who was a poor business owner, and they were still successful in spite of themselves. And now you have to pay attention to a lot of different things, just because there's not as much margin uh, in that business. So on the dental side of things, we're reorganizing the business to address that margin compression, um, and I think we have a good plan to return dentistry not only to the golden age of dentistry, but possibly to the platinum age is would be our goal for that, which is a shrinking market for dentists who want to own practices. There's a lot of competition to buy those practices as the market continues to consolidate, and we just want to hold green space for doctor-owned practices. I I think really, if you ask a room full of 50 dentists who runs dental practices better, dentists or private equity backed DSOs, all 50 of them are going to say we do. But you flip that room and you get the private equity and DSO guys into a room, and they're going to say by far we do. And it's not binary; they're both right. Like we run dental practices really well from an efficiency standpoint, but none of us are dentists, and the patient care and that piece is better coming from owner occupied practices, owner dentist practices. I believe are um, delivering better care to patients and a better patient experience. So kind of that's where we are right now on the dental side of things, reorganizing the business, moving forward to carve out that green space and bring profitability back to practices. Um, but along the way, should I take a breath and let you ask me another question? Or are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I
Okay.
just go. I have some questions, but I'm going to let you kind of finish this history, so to speak.
Okay. So I'm going to take this back to, I think it was 2023, and we have the ability to put on really strong leadership and management, uh, 2 day, 2.5 day uh, uh, conferences for dentists, and that's changed over time and what we present in those events. Um, and we had one scheduled for a ranch down in Waco that didn't make, and so we had like 4 or 5 dentists that were signed up, but really to for them to have the experience that they uh, drives the best result for them. You need more than that. So there's a dynamic process of them hearing from other doctors. So I just made the last minute decision that we would uh, have that ranch be time for our company to go out and do some planning, and instead of focusing outward, we would focus inward for 2.5 days. And we did. It was phenomenal, phenomenal feedback from the team. It's hard when you're a consulting business to put on an event like that for your people, because they kind of know everything that you normally do. So we had to change that up quite a bit. But I remember leaving the ranch uh, on Saturday afternoon and walking to my car, it struck me that we shouldn't have canceled this. We just need to open it up and make it non-dental specific and invite other business owners to it, because there's only a few sections of it that are right, dental specific, and we could always have a breakout session for the dentist on those or whatever. And that's kind of I think the seminal moment that I started thinking, I don't know why we're so singularly focused on the dental vertical. We have a lot of experience here. I think we do good work here. We're not perfect in this space, but we've actually taken on some roles that I think are better left with the dentist. And if we gave those up and we really focused on the things that we love doing and we're great at, we bring a lot of value, and we can bring that same value to general business owners. And that started the change to um, really what is now the new entity in Tribex. And under Tribex, we work with any type of company. So that's a little bit about the journey so far. But I think that the top, when I say top left, that's an EOS thing that we learned, entrepreneur operating system, and it's just like, what are you great at and love doing? And we really strive to have everybody in our organization figure out what their top left is, and then apply themselves as much as they can in that area. So that's what that reference is. And top left for me is definitely working with business owners who are under the stress and strain of owning a business, and nobody else really gets that, right? I can't even uh, a lot of times talk with their spouse about what's going on in the business, because they don't want to take that kind of stress home. So unless people have a group of other business owners that can relate, and I've found through a couple different CEO groups that we can all relate to each other, irrespective of the widget, because we all have the same issues that we're dealing with. So that's where I am today, and we are excited about the future, and also as we make the transition, we have a lot of uncertainty, and when you get into that kind of uncertainty, a normal human response is to freak out, and so uh, I'm I'm really kind of blessed that my team here hasn't freaked out. they they keep on doing what they are doing. I as a visionary, there is a lot of confusion, right? Like I can confuse my team really quickly. Like, wait, I thought we were doing dental, and like we are still doing dental. Um, let's just open that a little bit wider. So, anyway, that's kind of probably a good. Uh,
That's a good story. So in your bio that I read, you talked about, let me find it here. You talked about business owners knowing their identity. And so you just told me a lot about what you do. I want to go back before all of that. And when you were younger, like when you were a kid, what did you dream about doing? Or who did you
um,
dream about being even, I mean, we what we do is very closely linked to who we are, right? But, at the end of the day, we can be who we are in lots of different ways, right? We can drive lots of different cars. I say, business is the vehicle we're driving. But what were the things you dreamt about as a kid?
uh, like I think as a young kid, it's probably the same as um, a lot of little boys at the time would be like um, fireman or astronaut or police officer or whatever. Um, and uh, uh, but I think like it's really hard for me to tap into that, Sandy, because I'm the guy that graduated high school and didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had scored really well in what they call the ASVAB test, which was the armed services thing. Like it was a totally voluntary, didn't matter at all to class rank or graduation status at all. And so I pencil whipped it when they uh, brought us into the auditorium and took that. And like within a few weeks, I had all five branches of the military calling me, and I should stop and say that that was the year that Top Gun came out, the original Top Gun. And so when the Navy called me, and um, and their pitch to me was that they would put me into their nuclear engineering program, and uh, and I would have to spend 2 years on the sub, and then they would put me through MIT, and then I'd have to spend, I don't know, 2 or 4 more years on the sub after that. Um, and then they said like the starting salary for a nuclear engineer in the civilian world at that time was just like $78,000, and I'm this high school kid, so I'm like, sounds good to me. So like I came within inches of actually following that path, and both of my parents are um, Air Force brats, and my mom was really, really against the idea of me going directly into the Navy. Um, she said, "Hey, there's such a difference between enlisted and officers. Once you go to college first, if you still want to pursue the Navy, they're still going to be there afterwards, but you'll go in as an officer." And so, like, literally, um, the question was, what did I want to do as a kid? And the answer is, I really didn't know. Like, I had no idea. Um, I've, um, if I were to kind of think back and try to tap into that, just some sort of explorer um, would be the closest thing I could get to something that was challenging and where I was learning something new all the time. Was appealing to me, or discovering things was appealing to me, but but I didn't really have like some people say, well, I want to be an archaeologist. I didn't have anything like that. Just generally, um, I like to pursue what I wanted to pursue and learn more about.
Mhm.
So I go into college, and I had no idea what my major would be. And so, but my first semester, I had political science, uh, just an intro class to that, and I was hooked. And so, um, I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. So I didn't really have family to, uh, to give direction and that sort of thing. And I was 3.5 years in before I ever met with my advisor. Didn't know that I had an advisor, and he reached out to me and said, "So you're still undeclared?" And I'm like, "Yeah, is there a problem with that?" And like, well, if you want to graduate, you probably need to decide what your major wants to be. So he's a really cool guy. Sat down with me, and back then there was a paper catalog, and so he just spent some time flipping through the catalog, and he's like, um, if you go political science pre-law with a history minor, then you're one credit off right now of being able to graduate on time. And then he looked at it closely. He goes, on sciences, I could probably make the one biology and the one chemistry that you've taken into the two successive sciences that you need. So he pulled that one for me, and I ended up graduating on time. But I really had to, in that last year and a half, pack in all of the upper level political science stuff that I needed to graduate. That's how I wound up with a political science pre-law degree. But I was undeclared for 3.5 years, which is really unusual, and didn't know that there was something wrong with that. So, but I mean, history minor was really easy because I just took the classes that were interesting to me, and so yeah, and I came out of school and had no intention really. I thought about going to law school for a little bit, but uh, I really need to work for a while, so I think I'm going to work and make some money, and that's how I wound up in that corporate operations manager position. And yeah, I think I have probably one of the most unconventional career paths. I don't know. I don't really talk with people about that very much, but yeah, I got a lot of stuff in the history, and then when I got to dental, I just camped out there for a little bit. So
I think it's just so interesting. I think about raising my own kids and knowing what I know now about work, being a business owner, that I would have exposed them to many different things, like much different than the things they were exposed to. And I wish, and maybe we are doing this at a younger age in schools, but I wish we would teach kids that they could own their own business, right? How to be conscious capitalists, how to love well by doing good through work. Um, you said something also around uncertainty. And I also wish I would have told my kids, here's one thing you can count on absolutely every day, and that's uncertainty. So if
yeah,
you get used to understanding you can live like that, like you can flourish, if you can embrace that, it would have made a few difference. I have a 6-year-old grandson named Jet. He's always saying to me, that's not fair. And I keep saying, well, Jet, the world's not fair. Like, it's not fair. It's not going to be fair. In fact, sometimes, if you look at your life, he's 6, right? The way he lives is really unfair compared to the rest of the world because he has a great life, like just a great life compared
yeah,
to everybody else. So it's not fair. But I love your story because we do go through school, I think, thinking we have to be a thing, right? Like this is our identity. We're going to be this, instead of really exploring like the full depth of who we are as people, as individuals, as women, as men, as leaders, as people making impact in the world. Then we can pick a lot of different things that we could do to express that. And
hmm
so if I had my way, I would like turn education upside down and, do it very differently. And it's probably a good thing I'm not in charge because I probably wouldn't really be good at that. I just disrupt everything like you.